My pleasure this afternoon to introduce the mayor of Hoboken, New Jersey, Dawn Zimmer. She has been the mayor, it says here, since 2009, but before that she was a council member, and before that a citizen activist, who accomplished things and got things done, and no doubt that's why she got to be elected. And as someone who came from those same roots, Mayor Zimmer, it's always a pleasure to be able to introduce an activist mayor. And this afternoon, the closing plenary, pulling it all together, strategies for a challenging environment. So let's give a big welcome, you hardcore people, to Mayor Zimmer.
Wow, I got a lot of pressure here, the hardcore and pulling it all together. So I'll do my best with you today. So I want to thank the Local Government Commission for having me, and the EPA invited me as well. So it's really a pleasure to talk to all of you today. So I want to start. I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at the New York Times this morning, but I want to start by saying I was quite pleased to read that, according to the latest poll by the New York Times and Stanford University, an overwhelming majority of Americans support government action to curb climate change. And Hoboken being on the front lines of climate change, I think this is fantastic news. I think this is fantastic news for our state and for our country. And the tide is changing. The focus is changing, I think, and so for all of you hardcore people who are here, I think you probably really care about this issue. So Hoboken, again, we are a city that was on the front lines. We've been really severely impacted by Irene. Many of you may have heard about us with Sandy. We've had significant flood events since Sandy, and so we're a city that I don't want my city to be the poster child for Sandy. We're moving towards being a city that's really focused on resiliency and trying to become a model for other places. And really we're doing that by, a few things. Focusing on planning. I know some people think maybe you do too much planning, but it's the backbone of everything that you do, and it's the way that you move towards getting funding. And we focus a lot as well on bringing the community together. Community, engagement, community, reaching out to the community, working with community leaders. I know there's a lot of nonprofit organizations here. Your partnership with the local government makes a huge, huge difference. So do as much as you can for that. And we also, my approach with my team is, let's throw it out there and see what sticks and try for everything that we absolutely can, and really develop those funding opportunities to move our city forward. And finally, I want to say that I have seen on the local level a difference in, the EPA is doing the enforcement, and they're saying to the states, in New Jersey anyway, saying, like, you got to do the enforcement, you got to make this happen. And I remember in 2009 when I first became mayor, when I talked to them about, like, can't you put some new requirements on North Hudson Sewage Authority that controls our sewer system? Can't you incentivize green infrastructure? They looked at me like I had two heads, but now they're working with me. So it's the local municipalities working with the state, working with the federal government. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what has happened in Hoboken and what is happening. So this image, global warming is real. This is the boat that came up during Sandy onto our waterfront. And I think it's probably used in a lot of presentations it just went viral, this image. So it just shows kind of part of what happened. This is just to give you a little bit of background about Hoboken. We are a city of 53,000 people in 1 square mile, right across from New York City. This is our main street, Washington Street. We have arts and music festivals, all kinds of different festivals every year. This is our waterfront, a pier C out on our waterfront. Our waterfront is really the treasure of our city. So it's both a risk for our city, but it's very much a treasure of our city. And this is a bike lane in Hoboken. I'm focused on complete streets and really trying to implement it, actually trying to advocate for the community to support a bike lane going down our main street, Washington Street. So that is very much a focus of mine. I bike to work. I bike all over. think it's a great way to get around the city. This is an image of Mumford & Sons concert. Just gives you the perspective. We enjoy New York City more than New Yorkers do. That's the Empire State Building in the background. We had about 15,000 people there for that concert, but people love to come over to Hoboken, so we're promoting that more and more. This is good old Sandy coming in. So this is a map of Hoboken, and the blue is where it flooded. So the water came in from the south and from the north and literally went to the backside of the city, the western side of the city, and as I was quoted in the New York Times, filled up our city like a bathtub. The back end of the city probably had about 10 to 15 feet of water. Those red dots that you see, those are our substations. So the power could not go back on until the water receded, and that took about 5 days for that to happen. This is just we had about, again, it was probably about 80% of our city that was flooded, about 9,000 cars totaled that people had out on the street. This is, what it was like. We were doing rescues every way we could to help residents. And I'm a big proponent of sheltering in place as well as a result of Sandy. And, we were dealing with, the power outages, that's City Hall. Everything was black. So we went back to just the good old communication, writing on the computer, printing it up. We actually helped power, one of a local stores so that they could help us with the printing, and we had about 5,000 volunteers that went over the city, and it's amazing to see the number of rumors that get started when you're in the middle of a crisis. So we put out information twice a day to let people know the latest of what was going on through the storm, and I did press conferences every single day. So just to focus again on our, the risks for our city, we're at risk from the storm surge, we're at risk from rising sea levels. The western side of the city is below sea level, so we're also at risk of flash flooding, which happens quite a bit. 94% of our city is impervious, so we've got a lot of work to do. And another huge risk for our city is not only the flooding, but the National Flood Insurance Program, which those rates are going to be going up, and it's a major risk and concern for our residents. And I also encourage all of you, I'm sure maybe you have looked at it, but the National Climate Assessment Report is an excellent resource, and I use this to communicate with residents and let them know that, these heavy rain events that you're seeing, you look back over the last 50 years, heavy rain events have increased by 71% in the Northeast. So when it rains, it pours, and it's going to happen more and more, and we've got to work to protect ourselves. So this is an image on the right is our fire station. So a big part of what I'm trying to say to the federal government and to the state is instead of helping me with creating islands of protection, they'll give me funding to make my, to protect from the flooding for that fire station, but not for comprehensive protection for the city. And I'm a big proponent of, in the urban areas, we should be looking at how to protect cities and regions comprehensively, not just person by person, building by building, but how can we work comprehensively? And that's what I've been focused on, trying to advocate for. And I was absolutely thrilled when Sean Donovan, who was then Secretary of HUD, introduced the Rebuild by Design competition. Now, this competition brought professionals from all over the world. They created teams, and then they went throughout the region to really understand, what happened during Sandy, what happened to communities. And I jumped on the opportunity to have them come to Hoboken. It was actually my son's birthday, and it was a Saturday, and I said, well, sorry, but I got to do this, and took them, showed them what we were thinking about of how to protect the city from flooding, took them for a tour, and we participated. One team chose Hoboken, to focus on Hoboken, and they were like my team. I was willing to do anything and everything that I could to help win this design competition, and really working hard to make sure we got people to the community meetings, that we engaged community leaders. We got over 60 letters of support. And thankfully, we were able to win. We were one of 7 winners of this design competition, winning $230 million to protect our region. We're working with our neighbor, Weehawken, and to the south, Jersey City. So this plan, this $230 million that will fund primarily the resist strategy that I'm going to talk about, but it's a 4-part water management strategy. Resist, delay, store, discharge. So they built on things that we were already doing in the city and put it together as an overall comprehensive plan to protect our entire region. So if you look at this map again, you think back to that original image that I showed you of the map where the water came in. So the resist strategy is to resist at the north and the south. Delay, we want to delay the water from going down into the sewer system as much as possible. We have a combined sewer system in Hoboken. We want to store the water as much as possible, and then whatever water is left over, we want to be in a position to discharge it out of the city. So this is an image of the resist strategy. You know, a lot of people, a lot of residents sometimes get concerned, what, are you just going to build a big wall along our waterfront? I mean, we love our waterfront. You're not going to take that away. No. The idea is to, you know, we're really looking towards I think a great model is the Dutch and their approach, but it's to create park as levee system, create an amenity for the community, but to also protect as we design this out. So we actually already had funding. We have created, as part of this, a design for a boathouse. And just to show you, underneath, that will be wet-proof. It will be concrete. If there's a storm coming, we'll move the boats, but the waters can go in there. The top portion will be above the 500-year flood event level, and there'll be behind it the flood wall to protect from the water. So this is in the northern part of the city, would protect from the waters coming in. So that's kind of an aerial view, but that's you know, a part of the idea. We're also, we did a green infrastructure strategic plan, really, again, analyzing where are the opportunities to move the city forward. We have 3 properties, and I'm going to walk you through different strategies that we're looking at for funding these, but it's in the southwest Hoboken, Block 12, Pinot site, which is in Midwest Hoboken, and BASF. So the $230 million that we got, that's going to be going through the state, from HUD through the state, and the state is managing that waterfront project, and the majority of that $230 million will go towards the resist strategy, really protecting our city. So I am working on a parallel track and saying, like, we got to get this done as soon as possible, and I'm moving on a parallel track with the rest of the strategies to move the city forward. We're doing everything from, you know, all of the new streets that we're doing. We're designing Washington Street. We've done a redesign where we're incorporating, you know, bioswales. We got funding for a project on First Street where we're putting in rain gardens at the corners. Now the rain gardens, no, it can't solve the flooding, but it can help a little bit. It adds to the quality of life, and it also makes it safer for, you know, at the intersections. So we have, parking is a huge challenge. 1 square mile, 53,000 people, you can just imagine. So the more we can do to keep people from parking at the corners makes it safer for our pedestrians who are walking to work every day. So, or walking over to the PATH train. So it's kind of a solution that builds on its, you know, quality of life, flooding, and making it safer for our residents who are walking. So this is a Southwest Park. We're designing it. We actually acquired the land getting open space trust fund money from the county. Yes, I did use eminent domain. I said to my council, you know, we need to get this at the best price possible and at the fairest price for everyone, to the property owner and to the city of Hoboken. So, I mean, I don't want to have to do it, but I'm not going to overpay for the property. And so we now own the land. We got a grant from the Department of Interior for the design, and now the DEP is offering a green infrastructure loan program where it's 50% forgiveness for a green infrastructure project. So we are moving ahead, hoping to start construction on this project this summer. But it combines, it's a park amenity for the community, which is sorely needed, and the green infrastructure, and underneath will be a detention system. So it will be designed to hold about 200,000 gallons of water. Another park project in the middle, it's all on the western side, in the Midwest part of the city is, it's a 2-acre park that we're designing. On this one, we're working with the property owner. It's in a redevelopment area, so I'm working through the council subcommittee and trying to get support from the community, but designing this with the property owner to be, again, another park that has the green infrastructure, the detention system. So it'll be an amenity for the community. It'll build on, create more value in this whole area, and it will help to alleviate the flooding. And the last project that we're working on is we got this kind of inspired by the Dutch in Rotterdam. They have a park with parking underneath. And so we're working right now. We got a grant from the Rockefeller. It's called the Reinvest Initiative. It was sponsored by the Rockefeller Foundation. And so we're working on acquiring a 6-acre property that's highlighted here. And the Reinvest Initiative is working with us on designing this park in a way where it's park on top, and then it's parking for cars underneath, and then a stormwater detention system underneath. So we are, right now the focus is on acquiring the land, which the city has an open space trust fund. We're also applying for a low interest loan and doing the final design for this. And then we are very interested, and we think there is potential for the public-private partnership. Thankfully, New Jersey is in the process of passing legislation to make it legal, and we think when you look at the parking demand in Hoboken, there's a revenue flow there. We think that with North Hudson Sewage Authority, there's a potential fee that could be, we could work with them to get funding from them as well, because this plan actually is going to be part of their long-term control plan. Again, because the EPA, the DEP are saying to North Hudson Sewage Authority, you can't just keep pumping on into the river. You gotta do something different. And so they're very interested in this project. So we've got state support and federal support for this project. So it's still in process trying to figure out exactly what that funding will be. But based on the last session that I was just at, I think that there are opportunities, and we're going to build them, and we're going to find them. And another interesting concept that we're looking at as well is this property is surrounded by redevelopment zones. And so we're looking at how, what the project that we do will bring more value to those redevelopment zones. So we're looking at how we can legally make it so that some of those property owners have to give money to help make this project a possibility. So all of those strategies are being explored right now. And finally, the last part of the storage 4-part water management strategy includes a wetlands system and a green circuit around the city. There's a light rail system that goes around the city. New Jersey Transit is working with us and is very interested in exploring this. This is something that's done in Europe. I don't know that it's been done in the United States. And finally, for those emergencies, we are moving ahead with a second pump. So in those emergency situations, so that we can get the water out when we need to. And this is an image of ShopRite about a month ago. That was the level of flooding from a heavy rain event that we experienced. So that's probably happened. That has happened probably about 7 times since Sandy in Hoboken. We're also moving ahead. I think it's really important to have projects that kind of inspire the community and you can use for educational purposes. So we are moving ahead with a project around City Hall it would be cisterns to capture water and a rain garden system. And we want this to be a demonstration project for the community to say, we at City Hall, we're going to disconnect our downspouts. Right now in Hoboken, all of the stormwater downspouts go directly into the sewer system. So we are going to disconnect those downspouts. We're going to create a project that demonstrates that, and we're hopeful, and we're going to be doing a lot more educational workshops for people, but trying to incentivize, possibly through direct grants, possibly through tax reductions, trying to incentivize private property owners to think about what they can do with their own properties. And because I think that's a big part of it is if, one person, no, if you put on a green roof, that doesn't make a difference. But if we can inspire people across the city to do it, now we're talking. It's and for them to understand, it's part of an overall strategy. Resist, delay, store, discharge. So we're trying to get the private citizens, the private buildings, to also think about how they can be a part of that delay. Can they do just a rain barrel? Can they do a green roof? Can they put in porous pavers? Can they put in more trees in front of their homes? So, we have challenges moving forward. It's, it's to keep the keep the community engaged and supportive of this moving forward. I mean, and I keep getting all of this done, and I do keep telling the state, we can't study for 5 years. I mean, what if we have another, another Sandy type event? I can't tell the public that, well, we were just studying. So I'm trying to move them along and say, let's get it done. Every flood season, I'm concerned about, are we going to get hit by another major storm surge event? And the funding, we're going to have to keep figuring out exactly how all of this funding is going to come together, and just really trying to continue to build the consensus. So those are the challenges that lie ahead for us. So that's basically what's happening in Hoboken, and how we are moving our city from being that poster city of Sandy and what happened in Sandy, and trying to become a model for resiliency. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
John Wetmore with pedestrians.org. Do your plumbing codes allow someone to have a storage tank in their attic to take rainwater to use for flushing toilets?
We're working on design guidelines right now to implement new design guidelines, and so that's something that we're looking at. Right now, I don't believe it does, but that's something that we're looking at.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. What tools or rating systems are you using to assess the sustainability of all these projects? Are you using anything to tie it together, like Envision or any other system?
I'm sorry?
Sorry. Are you using any rating systems like Envision, or how are you telling the story, or what metrics are you using to assess the sustainability of these projects?
Right, so that's part of what we're, kind of putting together right now, and that's part of the $230 million funding, is to help us with how are we, we have the vision of how we think this should all come together, but we definitely need to be sort of setting up that system of how we're going to fully evaluate how is it working and how is it coming together. And I think, also using, I'm a big proponent of both using technology and using social media to reach people. And so, we're going to be looking much more closely at how we want to move ahead with completing these projects, but how are we gauging the success that we're having? So that's an ongoing, setting up that structure is part of what we're working on right now.
Just wondering, you might have mentioned it already, but are you considering or able to consider a stormwater utility fee?
Yeah, that's something that I think that we should do, but it's trying to get another. So North Hudson Sewage Authority is another agency that controls our sewer system. So it's a matter of getting sort of buy-in from them and buy-in from the state. So that would require, in order to do that, it requires state legislation. As mayor, I also have to balance how much can people handle. So we have an open space trust fund that is going towards helping funding a lot of these things. So if we're able to get the low interest loan from the state, the open space trust fund fee that we collect will go towards funding that. So while it's something that we're exploring, I am a little bit concerned that if you start doing too much, then you're going to have a backlash. So that's always the balancing act. Everyone wants everything, but they want the taxes to remain low too. So that's why, because we've kept our open space trust fund we did a reval, and we kept it at the original rate, and so we're generating a lot more funding that way. So anyway, so we're looking at it, but we're also sort of trying to take a pulse as to whether or not it would be too much. It would cause too much of a pushback from the community.
Well, obviously the storms is probably the most obvious issue that you have to deal with here. But I'm wondering, when you look ahead at climate change, if you've thought of any other impacts that might be coming your way, if there's, for example, more snow perhaps in years to come, and if you've had any guidance from anybody as to maybe what you might be able to expect in your part of the country.
Yeah, snow and heat. The heat waves are a major concern as well. With the snow, we got another storm coming. So I'm meeting with my team tomorrow morning. As far as the snow, again, it goes back to parking, and it's always a major challenge. And we're increasing this year we're increasing the communication with the residents. So the big issue is we need our emergency routes cleared, and then when we start the street cleaning, snow plowing, we need for people to move their cars, and people are always resistant to that. But we're using reverse 911 and all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Nixle, to reach people and get them to move their cars. So we are implementing kind of a more, and we're basically after the storm, one day we're down, and then the next day we're setting that expectation that, we're starting the street cleaning, which means snow plowing the parking lanes, so you got to move your cars. So, we're going to be continuing to get more snow, and in Hoboken, where the parking is premium and everyone wants to park on the street, it's a major, major challenge.
Hi, Bill Henry, Baltimore City Council. Kind of an open-ended follow-up to John's question. With thousands of gallons in the cisterns around City Hall of rainwater and that huge tank underneath the underground parking, what can you use that kind of rainwater for? Because we're very limited in what we're allowed to use it for here in Baltimore. What uses are you allowed to use that for?
So with those cisterns, you can use it for basically like watering around. Yeah. So for watering around but not right now for recycling back into the system. I don't think so, but yeah.
So I have a question. So when you came in as mayor, this is before Sandy, presumably, how much did Sandy sort of change the trajectory of what you came in to do? And a sort of a related question is, to what degree have you been able to make the economic development connections between the proposal that came out of RBD and some of the implementation strategies that are associated with that?
Yeah, so when I came in, this is making Hoboken, as green as possible has been my goal, and that's actually the reason that I ran for office. So I've wanted to do this for a very long time. That Southwest Park is something that I ran on as a council person to get into office. I was an activist fighting an overdevelopment plan. And so this is something that I've really wanted to do. I will say now, since Sandy, the opportunities have opened up more. So everyone that came, Hoboken, I think in part because we're right across the river from New York City, we're kind of an easy place for the media to come. And so because I was willing to talk to the press, and that kind of, I think, brought in federal people. So we had a lot of high-level people coming through Hoboken, and I talked to them about what I thought needed to happen. And so I think it kind of put us, in some ways, that I focused on kind of turning the negative into a positive. And, it was a crisis that I wish hadn't happened, but it has resulted in opportunities for us. I think it's put us in a position to get, I think it did put us in a position to get, for example, to win the Rebuild by Design competition. We were, kind of out there as a city that was devastated, and I advocated very strongly, but I think the media attention and everything that happened helped to put us there. And then your question about development, what was your? Right. So yes. So the idea is, it's basically that by protecting our city, we will also be able to. There will be future development that is generated as a result of protecting the city, and so that's we're looking at how much that analysis needs to be done as far as like how much from the development could go into supporting and funding the overall water management strategy. Part of the challenge that I face, it's a balancing act. Hoboken residents are really concerned about overdevelopment and really concerned about having too much development. And again, we are one of probably the fourth most densely populated city in the country. We're more densely populated than New York City, and so we just passed we're working with New Jersey Transit, and we just passed a 2.2 million square foot, 2.3 million square foot redevelopment plan. And what I said to the community is it has to be economically viable. And there were a lot of people who were my supporters who were very angry that we went ahead and pass this plan, but it's got to be economically viable. And that's what I, again and again told people, and we moved ahead and we've passed the plan. And, I'm hopeful that this, New Jersey Transit and the state will want to move forward and actually get it built. And if that happens, then that will generate some revenue towards the overall, funding for the overall strategy. So, it's yet to be seen, but we're moving in that direction. Hoboken, I am very proud, and I know that was a concern. What's going to happen with our economy, after we were devastated, and then we got national, and I have friends who live in Japan who knew what happened in Hoboken, and that was a major concern. Are we just going to be could our economy kind of come crashing down because we're just like the flood city? And that hasn't happened. I mean, it's rebuilt. There's tremendous interest in Hoboken. Pearson Publishing is going to have their headquarters in Hoboken. There's a new Jet.com. They're expecting to rise up against Amazon. They're going to have their headquarters in Hoboken. And so there's a lot of interest. And we just had a great piece in the New York Times. And they mentioned the rebuild by design and what we're doing. And so this whole plan that we have is actually helping to sort of continue that growth of our city. But it's a constant balancing act, because there are definitely residents who are concerned about overdevelopment. And my approach to development is you gotta look at, it's not about what the property owners want. You got to look at the total impact. You got to look at the flooding impact. You got to look at transportation. You got to look at traffic issues. You kind of need to piece all of that together. And it hasn't been done that way in the past in Hoboken, but it's under my administration. There's been a real focus on that.
You mentioned that the Greenway stretched over to Weehawken as well. Can you just talk about some of the synergies and the challenges of resilience planning at a regional scale, kind of taking a look outside your own city?
Yeah, I mean, it was a challenge getting my fellow mayors engaged and involved, but once they began to understand that if by working together, that we can actually do something that's much more cost effective. I mean, originally Mayor Turner, that's in Weehawken to the north of Hoboken, was like, he's going to build his own wall to protect, and I was thinking maybe I needed to build a wall. We were going to end up with a wall and wall. It was ridiculous. And so it was actually the design team that came in and really got both of us thinking, well, actually, it makes a lot more sense to focus on the waterfront and to work together. And working together and having the resist strategy that extends from Hoboken into Weehawken, and that's what that $230 million would fund. It protects Hoboken residents and businesses. It protects the area that flooded in Weehawken, and it also would protect North Hudson Sewage Authority, which serves 5 communities, and they came within a foot of being completely shut down. Now, they were shut down for 9 days, so let me just tell you, it wasn't just seawater, it was, every day, more concentrated, disgusting water that was going into our homes. And so, I'm actually engaging, the other mayors that didn't flood and saying, we need your help in advocating for this because, if North Hudson sewage goes down, you got no sanitation services. So actually there's a senator who has a good relationship with Governor Christie, and he's helping me to make sure that we keep this moving and that it's moving as expeditiously as possible, because again, I mean, we could be hit, next year and that sewage facility is wiped out. So it's been, at first, I mean, my fellow mayors thought I was kind of crazy. They didn't think that, I mean, I was the first mayor, I will say, to really say, wow, this rebuild by design competition, this is an amazing opportunity. We got to go for it. We got to get everyone engaged. We got to get all of our community leaders. We just have to really go for it. And he thought, Mayor Turner just, he told me, he's like, I thought you were crazy. I thought we were never going to win. There was no chance, but I got him engaged. I got him, we got, Weehawken residents engaged. We got North Hudson Sewage Authority engaged, and we went together, Mayor Turner and I went together with the team to present to Secretary Donovan, and there were like 50 judges that judged that. So it took some effort, but I definitely have gotten my fellow mayors engaged and seeing, like, again, you just got to throw it out there and go for it and see what happens. And that's what we did with this, and we were able to win this competition. Any other? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
There's nothing like a good crisis to be taken advantage of, although I'm kind of glad I wasn't a citizen of your city during some of these events that you have described to us. But what you have told us is, I guess, a story of resiliency that, if one can use another somewhat cliched word, resonates with all of us and all of us in local government, and dealing with the state, dealing with the feds, dealing with our neighbors. And I loved your wee bit about Weehawken and yourselves and getting ready to build the two walls, the Hoboken wall and the Weehawken wall. Maybe that's not such a good idea. Anyway, these were grand stories for us this afternoon, and let's give Mayor Zimmer a huge round of applause.